Welcome to my granola making video. We are going to be interspersing some educational aspects to do with project management while we make I'll call it pecan, peanut, coconut, cranberry, cinnamon chocolate granola. Bear with me, I am not much of a social influencer, so we're just going to go with what I got. So I have the oven preheating to 375, and I've gotten my two sets of materials and equipment. So the sauce over here, we've got our brown sugar, cocoa, honey, molasses. We'll have some water. We'll also throw some butter in. I'll have a pan here that I'll explain. I make a little sling to be able to first toast the oatmeal or the oats, and then that's actually where everything will get ultimately baked. Big mixing bowl, pecans, chocolate chips, craisins, cinnamon, some more butter, measuring cups, oats, coconut, peanuts, a ramekin for melting the butter, and a little mini chopper. So I'll take you through a couple steps here. There might be some pictures and a little bit of video as I see fit. So I use a little mini chopper here. I put 1 cup of oats in there, chop it up, kind of get a little bit of powder, a little bit of just chopped oats, and then the remaining 5 half cups, so total of 3.5 cups, just throw in here about 3 tablespoons of melted butter. I use half cup pretty much for everything here. That's kind of what I base the recipe on, so everything's kind of in those units. And I'll just go ahead and mix this together with that. And then we will put it onto a quarter sheet. So this quarter sheet is got a sling. So basically 2 pieces of parchment paper that I've cut. So one goes lengthwise, one goes sideways. You can just put it in a usual quarter sheet, but I just find it easier to get things in and out. And then we'll use the same thing to bake stuff in. The first 10-minute timer will go on for the oats. The oven just got heated up. So we'll spread those out, and then we'll stir, and then we'll do another 10. We'll stir, we'll do another 10, and then we'll knock down the oven to 250 so that we can bake the granola off. Now we're making the sauce. So 3/4 cup of water, 1/2 cup packed brown sugar, can be light or dark, doesn't matter. A big pat of butter, probably somewhere between 1 and 2 tablespoons, just depends on where the knife goes. A little bit of, gotta get this going in the right direction here. A little bit of molasses, kind of eyeballing. It's probably about 1/4 cup. I just kind of, yeah, something like that. And then we're gonna go and do a big squeeze of honey. So whatever, basically 1 full squeeze of honey. This is pretty thick stuff. Probably about 1/4 cup, maybe a half, probably 1/4. And then we'll call that good. 2 hands. And then we're going to go ahead and do whatever cocoa we feel like doing, kind of based on what it comes out. See, that's always what happens. There we go. That's probably about right. Now I got to do a little bit of cleanup on aisle 5. And we're going to go ahead and put that on a very low heat and just simply get that to simmer. And that will be the sauce that holds things together. Now I've chopped up 1.5 cups of pecans, a cup of salted roasted peanuts, a cup of shredded coconut. I am a big fan of this stuff from the co-op. And then we're going to be adding in a cup of craisins. We didn't have any at the co-op, or they didn't have any at the co-op, so I ended up getting some ocean spray, but not a lot of sugar in them. That's sort of the key piece. And then I'm just going to sprinkle in some cinnamon. I don't know, maybe 2 tablespoons. I don't know, kind of depends on what your interest is. Also, you can find that in bulk at the co-op. And we're going to kind of stir that together and wait for the oats to get done. I just did my first stir of the oats, so the first 10 minutes are up, and we'll keep going from there. I just pulled the toasted oats out after 30 minutes, so 10 minutes at a pop, and then stirring. The key is that the edges get a little bit brown, and there's a little bit of toast, not necessarily going to be really dark. And we're going to go ahead and combine that with the nut, coconut, craisin mixture that I showed you earlier. And then with our simmered sauce of sorts here, and combine that all together. At the same time, knocking the oven down to 250 for the final bake off. So I've taken half the mixture and put it back in the tray, and I used a spatula to compress that down so it's nice and packed all the way out to the edges. I put about half, so this is an idea of what you're expecting with the sauce in the other mixture. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to sprinkle chocolate chips across the top of this, and then take the remaining part of the mixture, put it on top, squish it down, and then we'll go ahead and stick it in the oven. So we have everything finally packed in. Again, on the top here, just remember everything you're dealing with here is hot. The pan's still hot. What we put in there for the sauce is hot. The oats are hot. So I've got a couple of hot pads underneath, and I had a hot pad underneath that bowl as well. So now this is going to go into the 250 oven for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, something like that. And then we'll give it a cool and cut it up and check it out. After 40 minutes, we're just going to go ahead and let this cool for about 15, and then we'll cut it up into whatever sizes you want. And just another thing I did in parallel is took care of the dishes, so not too bad, but also something that we will be noting as part of our Gantt chart. Final step, I cut them in the pan. I find that easier to do, and I choose to do it in 12 chunks, and you should end up with a pretty decent crust in the middle and pretty decent cut here. Chocolate chips keep it together pretty well. I'm going to let these cool on top of the fridge because there's chocolate, and even though the dogs aren't counter surfers, I don't really want to have any kind of issues associated with that. So that's what I got, and I hope you enjoy.